In the 16th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, we read the following: "And Jesus said to Peter, Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give to thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt bind upon earth, it shall be bound also in heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt loose upon earth, it shall be loosed also in heaven." It is an indisputable fact of sacred scripture and sacred tradition that Jesus Christ made Peter the visible head of his church. Christ gave the supreme authority to Peter and Peter's successors as popes to rule the universal church of God, to invoke their supreme authority when necessary to teach infallibly on doctrinal issues, and to regulate the Catholic Church's laws and worship. But as many of you know, throughout the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church, there have been some antipopes, that is to say, men who claim to hold the authority of pope, yet who are not canonically elected as head of Christ's Church. Some antipopes were installed by anti-Catholic emperors who had taken the true pope into exile and implanted their own man. Others were elected fraudulently after the true pope had already been chosen. One of the most notorious cases in church history was that of the antipope Anacletus II, who reigned in Rome from 1130 to 1138. Anacletus had been implanted in an uncanonical election, after Innocent II, the true pope, had already been chosen. Despite his invalid and uncanonical election, antipope Anacletus II gained control of Rome and the support of the majority of the College of Cardinals. Anacletus held the support of almost the entire populace of Rome until the true pope regained control of the city in 1138. It is not our goal in this video to deal in depth with the cases of antipopes in church history. It should suffice to say that in the history of the church, there have been many different cases of antipopes, cases that have encompassed a wide variety of circumstances. An entire tape could be dedicated to investigating the history surrounding many of these antipopes' reigns. Since there have been over 40 antipopes in the history of the Catholic Church, we simply want to note at the beginning of this tape that antipopes, that is to say, false successors of Peter, have existed, who have deceived a significant part of the Catholic world, and even posed as the true pope while reigning from Rome itself. This fact proves that it is not impossible that an antipope is reigning from Rome right now, an antipope posing to the world as the true pope, while in fact being the Church's bitter enemy. As many of you know, and as we have documented on our video, Vatican II Council of Apostasy, the incredible changes that have taken place in the Catholic world as a result of the Second Vatican Council have been a complete break with traditional Roman Catholicism. It is simply a fact that Vatican II and the religion it produced were contrary to the unchangeable teaching of the Roman Catholic Church. In the video Vatican II Council of Apostasy, we prove that the two men who instigated the Vatican II apostasy and revolution, John the 23rd and Paul VI, were not legitimate popes, but actually non-Catholic antipopes. In this tape, we will shine the spotlight on the man who has perpetuated the Vatican II apostasy to levels that far exceed that of John the 23rd and Paul VI. We will shine the spotlight on John Paul II, arguably the greatest heretic in the history of the world, and we will prove that he is not and cannot be the real pope of the Catholic Church. The teaching of the Catholic Church on heresy. To understand why John Paul II cannot be the Pope, one must understand heresy and apostasy. Heresy is the obstinate denial or doubt by a baptized person of an article of divine and Catholic faith. In other words, a baptized person who deliberately denies an authoritative teaching of the Catholic Church is a heretic. Pope Leo XIII proclaims this teaching in his encyclical Satis Cognitum. Pope Leo XIII, Satis Cognitum, number 9, June 29, 1896. The practice of the Church has always been the same, as is shown by the unanimous teaching of the Fathers, who are wont to hold as outside Catholic communion and alien to the Church, whoever would recede in the least degree from any point of doctrine proposed by her authoritative magisterium. Apostasy, on the other hand, is not merely the denial or doubt of one or more teachings of the Catholic Church, but a complete rejection of the Christian faith altogether. In this video, we will show that John Paul II is both a heretic and an apostate. As the teaching of Pope Leo XIII shows, a heretic is outside Catholic communion and alien to the Church. The same therefore goes for apostates, since all apostates are also heretics. The fact that a heretic is outside the Catholic Church is a defined dogma affirmed by many popes. A heretic cannot be inside the Catholic Church, because by denying the faith, he is automatically expelled from her. Pope Eugene IV, Council of Florence ex cathedra. The Holy Roman Church firmly believes, professes, and preaches that all those who are outside the Catholic Church, not only pagans, but also Jews or heretics and schismatics. We see here that Pope Eugene IV defined infallibly that all heretics are outside the Catholic Church. Pope Innocent III, Eius Exemplo, December 18, 1208. By the heart we believe, and by the mouth we confess the one Church, not of heretics, but the Holy Roman, Catholic, and Apostolic Church, outside of which we believe that no one is saved. We see in this solemn profession of faith of Pope Innocent III that the one true Church of Christ cannot include heretics. In fact, so foreign are heretics to the Catholic Church that the Catholic Church has actually defined that heretics are the gates of hell. Pope Vigilius' Second Council of Constantinople 553. We bear in mind what was promised about the Holy Church in him who said, "The gates of hell will not prevail against it." By these we understand the death-dealing tongues of heretics. Pope St. Leo IX, September 2, 1053. The Holy Church built upon a rock, that is Christ, and upon Peter, because by the gates of hell, that is, by the disputations of heretics, which lead the vain to destruction, it would never be overcome. Thus, it is infallible Catholic truth that a heretic cannot be a member of the Catholic Church. Many other authorities could be brought forward to further prove this point, but we will simply quote Pope Leo XIII again, who summarizes this dogmatic teaching of the Church quite well. Pope Leo XIII, Satis Cognitum, number 9. No one who merely disbelieves in all these heresies can for that reason regard himself as a Catholic or call himself one. For there may be or may arise some other heresies which are not set out in this work of ours, and if anyone holds to one single one of these, he is not a Catholic. And because a heretic cannot be a Catholic or a member of the Catholic Church, it is a fact that a heretic cannot be a pope, because a pope is the head of the Catholic Church. Pope Pius IX, First Vatican Council, Session 4, Chapter 3. The Pontiff of Rome himself is the successor of the Blessed Peter, the chief of the apostles, and is the true vicar of Christ, and head of the whole Church. The Pope is the head of the whole Catholic Church, and we already saw that heretics cannot be members of the Catholic Church. Therefore, it is infallible that a heretic cannot be a pope, because a heretic cannot be the head of that which he is not a member of. This is why the saints and doctors of the Church consistently teach that if a pope were to become a manifest heretic, he would immediately lose the office of pope. St. Antoninus. In the case in which the pope would become a heretic, he would find himself by that fact alone, and without any other sentence, separated from the Church. A head separated from a body cannot, as long as it remains separated, be head of the same body from which it was cut off. A pope who would be separated from the